Hello and welcome to The Top Story, a podcast with the headlines of the day from our correspondents around the world. I'm Qizhi. Coming up in this edition, cities around the world have welcomed the arrival of 2025, with thousands gathering in Beijing's Tian'anmen Square to witness the year's first flag-raising ceremony. The UN Human Rights Office says Israeli attacks on hospitals in Gaza have devastated the Strip's health system, raising serious concerns about Israel's compliance with international law. And the supply of Russian natural gas to Europe via Ukraine comes to an end on New Year's Day with the expiration of a transit deal. We begin in Asia. Thousands of people have gathered at Tian'anmen Square in downtown Beijing, braving the cold to witness the first flag-raising ceremony in the Chinese capital this year. As Huang Yue reports, this is a moment symbolizing hope, unity, and a fresh start.
At 7:36 a.m., precisely when Beijing was covered in the first rays of sunlight, onlookers all held up their phones and cameras with their eyes fixed on the soaring national flag. Tian'anmen Square was packed with locals and tourists, many of whom waited through the night for this moment. As cheers erupt for the first flag-raising ceremony of the new year, flocks of pigeons were released, soaring over the square, symbolizing hopes for well-being, peace, and prosperity in 2025. Many of the spectators lined up outside the square at midnight to get a good spot, despite freezing temperatures of about -8 degrees Celsius.
We arrived before 3 a.m. We are university students in Beijing, and watching the flag-raising ceremony here tops the must-do list for us since we study and live in the capital.
We came all the way from Shenzhen to witness the flag-raising ceremony. It's an exciting experience. For the new year, I wish everyone happiness.
Every time I watch the flag-raising ceremony, I feel emotional and deeply moved. This year, I hope to achieve more at work, contributing to our country's development.
I come from Sichuan province, and I'm a member of the Tibetan ethnic group. Watching the flag-raising ceremony on the first day of the year feels truly meaningful. For 2025, I wish good health for my family, friends, and loved ones.
At the Tian'anmen Square, the start of 2025 is marked not just by tradition, but also by the shared aspirations of people from all walks of life. It's a powerful reminder of the hope, joy, and unity that carry us into the new year.
That was Huang Yue in Beijing. Many cities across China have hosted various New Year's celebrations. The activities include lantern fairs, light shows, firework displays, parades, and gatherings. Locals in Chongqing have celebrated the new year with lively cultural performances. Gongming has more from the southwestern Chinese city.
I'm here in Chongqing at one of the city's most famous and vibrant tourist spots, Shanchengxiang, also known as Mountain City Alley. You can tell from the name itself give away its charm, a place that perfectly blends Chongqing's unique mountainous geography with a rich history. And this area preserves historic architectures and old street culture while incorporating traditional style with modern commercial elements. It's a culture and tourism landmark hailed as a new symbol of Chongqing. And the New Year's Day, and also this place buzzes with energy. Locals, as well as visitors from all over the country and even abroad, flock here to explore the charming little shops, taste the local snacks, and just soak up the vibrant atmosphere here. And one highlight you simply can't miss is the region's distinctive tea culture. And this kind of tea, and here people, they can enjoy a cup of tea under the winter sunshine, chatting with family and friends while immersing themselves in a joyful vibe. And you might also catch traditional cultural performances like the dramatic face-changing act of Sichuan opera and also the captivating long-spot teapot art. And these performances not only entertain but also showcase the folk traditions that form an integral part of China's tea culture. And also in this New Year holiday, Chongqing's Cultural and Tourism Department has planned over 100 special events. There will be more than 30 exhibitions and interactive experiences across the city's major museums, offering visitors a chance to dive into history and art. And also for fans of live performances, theaters across the city will host Broadway musicals and New Year symphony concerts, giving both locals and tourists the chance to fully enjoy the cultural celebrations.
That is Gongming in southwest China. Cities around the world have held diversified activities to ring in the new year. Locals displayed fireworks and held light shows in New Zealand and Australia, which were among the first group of countries to welcome the new year. Similar activities also took place in Syria and the United Arab Emirates. In Japan, many people visited temples to make New Year wishes. Some people across Africa have expressed their hopes and aspirations for the new year.
I would tell my country's officials Happy New Year. I wish you good health and that together we can achieve all that we need and that everything would be better for Egypt.
I'm hoping to grow myself. I'm hoping to go back to school, finish my master's degree and upgrade. I'm also hoping to become a better man, family man.
For me personally, my hopes for 2025 is to grow in terms of financially, my craft, and maybe finding a wife, I think so.
I just want to expand in every area I can, and then to touch lives. The situation of the country, we can see how things are on a daily basis.
There's so many things that I would like to see change in our country next year. The first is our living conditions. There's a Congolese musician who sang a song in Swahili titled, "What Are the Citizens Requesting?" He's called Wazekwa. Basically, people want to get more money to live decent lives.
In Gaza, Palestinians say they hope the war will end in the new year with the siege lifted and security and peace prevailing. Naja Al-Tibi reports from the Strip.
With the start of the celebrations of the arrival of 2025, the people of Gaza are still suffering from the ravages of the conflict that has been ongoing for more than a year. CGTN visited the church of Saint Preferius in Gaza City, where dozens of Christians who use the church as their shelter gathered on Christmas Eve in an atmosphere of sadness. The activities were limited to prayers and supplications to stop the war that has been ongoing for about 15 months, the usual manifestation of joy, decorative lights, and the huge Christmas tree that the city has been accustomed to decorating every year for decades were completely absent.
We are here mostly displaced members of the Christian community inside the church. We hope that the war will end, and we are waiting to hear the good news that this aggression against us will stop, and the war will stop.
Fortunately, a ceasefire agreement between Hamas and Israel in Gaza has begun to take shape. It is expected to provide a shorter truce and a moment of peace for the people of Gaza, who have lost thousands of their loved ones in the ongoing war.
When I think of 2025, it's hard to think of many positive things, but we hope for the better, because we made the same exact wish in 2024, and unfortunately and tragically enough, none of this happened, and we went through another year of hardship, tragedies, and much of the agony continues to happen. And my only hope, my only wish that 2025 is going to be different, at least with one hope. If I'm asking for one thing, it will be a ceasefire.
Nurse Riham Awad volunteered to move between the tents of the displaced to treat people wounded from continual bombing after hospitals ran out of room for any more patients. She told CGTN about her wishes for the new year.
My first wish is for the war to stop, so that the massacres and injuries to children that we experience every day stop. My second wish is for me to have a single location with medical equipment in order to treat a larger number of cases without moving between tents to save time and effort.
The Israeli war in Gaza has claimed more than 45,000 dead and more than 100,000 wounded, most of them women and children, and the majority of Palestinians have been displaced from their destroyed homes.
Despite the ongoing war here in the coastal strip, the Palestinians are looking forward to the new year with a lot of hope for peace and returning to their cities and homes from which they were displaced, even though they have been subjected to a lot of destruction.
That was Nadra Al-Tibi in Gaza. More on the Middle East. The UN Human Rights Office says Israeli attacks on hospitals in Gaza have devastated the Strip's health system, raising serious concerns about Israel's compliance with international law. Hostilities in Gaza have severely impacted Palestinian access to medical services. Israel's permanent representative to the UN in Geneva described the report as fabricated, accusing Hamas of using hospitals in Gaza for terror activities. The report says attacks against hospitals and non-military objectives are war crimes. It also warns that rights abuses against civilians could constitute crimes against humanity. Israel has consistently rejected such suggestions. Rami Almagari has more from Han Yunis.
The latest was from the Jabalia refugee camp, where a family of 6 members has been reportedly killed and gone dead because of an Israeli strike. And also in the Beit Lahia town, there was a strike on a home in which people were killed, and a few people were killed and others were injured. This goes with the fact that the Israeli army is doing some kind of bombardment of homes, of neighborhoods in the northern parts of the Gaza Strip, particularly in Beit Hanun, Beit Lahia and Jabalia. For Beit Hanun town, there is some families stranded over there without food or drinks, and they're calling for people to help them evacuate from the area, as the Israeli army has intensified its actions over there, apparently in a preparation for or on the way to displace or to force all the residents of the northern Gaza Strip to leave towards the Gaza City, or which is the case in Gaza City. Hundreds of displaced families have been affected by the storm in that territory for the time being. Rainfalls have affected and tents are drowned in the rains, with the infrastructure being battered in the territory, and the civil defense services are not able to help or rescue those people or provide them with any shelter places or shelter tents or any other supplies. This goes also with the United Nations warning over the past few days that the UNRWA is waiting for hundreds of tons of supplies that are stuck on the border, on the Egyptian side of the border, because of the border restrictions and the closure. The UNRWA cannot, the United Nations cannot help bring these supplies that are much needed in the territory, with also hundreds of tents in the southern Gaza Strip have drowned into the waterfalls since over the past 24 hours. This is actually the situation in the Gaza Strip, with also some more Israeli actions. Let's not forget this. In the Nusayrat refugee camp, there was a shelling or a heavy fire from the Israeli naval vessels towards the west of the Nusayrat refugee camp in central Gaza Strip.
That was Rami Almagari in southern Gaza. Turning to Europe, the supply of Russian natural gas to Europe via Ukraine comes to an end on New Year's Day with the expiration of a transit deal. This comes despite efforts from Moscow and some European countries to renew the contract. The European Commission reportedly says the EU is prepared for the termination, and member countries will receive gas from other countries via alternative routes. Johannes Pleschberger reports from Austria.
Austria's Baumgarten terminal is ready to receive its last gas flows from Russia. Despite previous transit stop announcements by Ukraine, Kyiv has so far never implemented them. But experts say this time is different.
Starting January 1st, 2025, it's our understanding that eventually, the Russian gas that's coming to Europe is going to stop completely.
Energy analyst Anna Subasic says efforts by Slovakia and Hungary to negotiate a new transit deal have likely not been successful. She's expecting Central and Eastern Europe to make the shift from Russian gas to liquefied natural gas coming from northwestern Europe instead.
Europe will rely on a lot more LNG to kind of fill for this kind of loss that we are seeing from pipeline gas, which is around 15 BCM on a yearly basis.
Gas flow through Ukraine accounts for around half of Moscow's pipeline exports to Europe. So after decades of cheap Russian gas, consumers in Central Europe now fear LNG imports will increase energy prices.
At the beginning of December, Austria unilaterally cancelled its gas contract with Moscow after Russia's state-owned Gazprom had refused to supply gas to Austria's OMV company over payment disputes. Gazprom lost one of its few remaining long-term pipeline gas buyers in Europe. For 50 years, Austria sourced on average 80% of its gas supply from Russia.
That was Johannes Plischberger in Austria. Finally, in Africa, the Sudanese Health Ministry says attacks by the Rapid Support Forces have killed at least 9 people and injured over 100 others in Khartoum over the past week. Most of the victims are from Omdurman, which has seen sporadic attacks by the RSF since the army regained control of large parts of the city. Naba Muhyiddin has more from Port Sudan.
The developments come amid attempts by students across the country to set key entry exams for university. Students in 8 of the country's 18 states have been excluded for exams because of the ongoing fighting. Exams are held in Khartoum, White Nile, Blue Nile, River Nile, Northern State, Kassala, Al-Gadarif, and the Red Sea State. Those exams have been postponed for almost 2 years due to the ongoing war between the Sudanese army and the RSF that erupted in April 2023. In Omdurman, it's claimed the RSF targeted public transportation, hospitals, and markets. Last month alone, about 200 civilians were killed in such attacks in Omdurman, Al-Fashir, and Al Jazeera in central Sudan. Despite the international calls to end hostilities and stop the war, violence against civilians in Sudan has increased, leading to fears the war may spread to so-called safe regions.
That was Naba Muhyiddin on the violence in Sudan. Now, recapping the headlines before we go, cities around the world have welcomed the arrival of 2025, with thousands gathering at Beijing's Tian'anmen Square to witness the year's first flag-raising ceremony. The United Nations Human Rights Office says Israeli attacks on hospitals in Gaza have devastated the Strip's health system. And the supply of Russian natural gas to Europe via Ukraine has come to an end with the expiration of a transit deal. And that's it for this edition of The Top Story, a podcast that brings you world headlines every weekday. For more news in politics, business, sports and culture, you can subscribe to the Beijing Hour, a 1-hour podcast news magazine program. We would welcome and appreciate all ratings and reviews. I'm Qi Zhi. Thanks for listening.